Boy, was I ever wrong. When I first heard that Line 6 was releasing this little guy right here, the HX1 pedal, I read over what it was about and wasn't really that excited about it. I thought, okay, big deal. We got a whole pile of algorithms that I have in my Helix and HX Stomp, but I can only run one of them at a time. That's not that exciting to me. But as I looked into it deeper, and now that I have one, the folks at Line 6 really knocks it out of the park with this. We get all of these great effects from the HX ecosystem from Helix and HX Stomp and HX Effects. It's basically like a mini HX Effects where we can run one algorithm at a time, but with this really cool Flux feature and a lot of great routing and assignment possibilities, MIDI compatible, expression pedal external foot switch compatible, and it's really, really well thought out. And I now actually am a believer. I love this. I'm going to add it to my pedal board so I can utilize it with my amps or other modelers such as Tonex pedal, and it gives me some of what are my favorite effects from the HX ecosystem in this beautiful little compact pedal. Today I'm going to run you through what it's all about, let you hear some sounds with it when used in conjunction with Tonex pedal, and show you all the ins and outs of what is possible with this great little box. I hope you enjoy. Let's head over and take a look and see what it's all about. All right, so here we are over dealing with the Line 6 HX1. I'll give you a little quick explanation here as to how I have this set up. Just off camera above the HX1 is a big boy Tonex pedal, and I figured I would demonstrate HX1 with a non-Line 6 product to show how well HX1 can bring the incredible effects from Line 6's HX Effects lines into other products. And Tonex pedal and Tonex 1 pedal seem to be prime candidates for a pedal like this that could add a real wide array of possibilities to our tones. So the way I am set up today, and there's a number of ways we could set this up. I'm set up in 4-cable method. So basically my guitar is going straight into the HX1. I am coming out of the HX1, and I'm going to show you how you have to have this set up globally for 4-cable mode in a moment, but coming back out of HX1 into Tonex pedal. I'm coming back out of Tonex pedal back into HX1, and from HX1 back out straight into my audio interface. So what you're going to hear is a tone model of mine based off my incredible Sir Ombre amp, and this is my Sir Ombre Ultimate Collection. It sounds like this. Off screen, I am playing my Gibson Les Paul Jr. So basically you're hearing just the tone model as it is being processed from Tonex, and right now HX1 is bypassed. We're not going to hear anything in there, but let's go and examine what actually is on HX1, what we get with it, how we have to set things up for specific situations. So over here on HX1, you can see right now that I have an optical trim up and running, but to get things set up properly for this 4-cable method, there is going to be some settings we have to get right. I can come in here and long press my effects button. Now that's going to get me into my settings menu. So you'll notice here, let's just go through this so you're aware of what we can do here. We have an input gate for our preset. We can turn that on or off. We can set the gate threshold, and we can set the gate decay. So very nice feature. By scrolling over with our arrow buttons, we have an input impedance. Now this is only going to be functional on whatever effect we have that is going to be affected by that input impedance. So if I was to come back out of this and change the effects block that I have in there, you can now see, since I picked the block that is going to be affected by input impedance, I can adjust that. I can set it to auto 1 mega ohm and different settings here. So we'll just leave that to auto for now. We have the in-out configuration. This is going to be extremely important. So if I set this to stereo, then that means I'm not going to be able to utilize this in 4-cable method. Basically, we're going to have stereo inputs, stereo outputs on HX1. So I could take it in this case and have my Tonex pedal coming straight into HX1 and stereo out of HX1, and then I would have my Tonex, which is acting as my amp in this case, coming straight into HX1, and we will always have the effect from HX1 after our amp, or in this case, Tonex Tonex pedal. And you'll notice that the insert position is not functional when we're set like that. We could also put HX1 before the amp or the Tonex pedal, but then we would be collapsing whatever signal to mono since we're hitting the mono front end of Tonex. So how we set this up is going to be dependent on our needs. But for this particular situation today, I'm going to do 4-cable method. So I need it to act in insert mode. Now, what we can do is we can decide with this little knob right here whether we want our effect from HX1 before or after our amp. So if we choose pre, then that's going to basically put the effect in the amp's effects loop. So basically it's telling you that this is telling you the position of the amplifier. So the amplifier is going to be pre the effect. And if I want the amplifier post the effect, then I'm going to put it in post. So basically we're going to have to set this depending on what we're putting into this. If we had reverb, let's say, or delay, where we wouldn't want the delay feeding into the overdrive of the amp for one situation, we would want to set this to pre so that the amplifier, in this case Tonex pedal, is before HX1. So we'll leave it there for now. As we go through here, we have input and output levels, which can be set to either instrument or to line. And I have this set in 4-cable method. My guitar is plugged straight into HX1. I have the in set to instrument, and I have my out level set to line, since that is then feeding into a line input on my audio interface. We have two types of bypass. We can do true bypass or a DSP buffered bypass. I'll just leave that on DSP for now. As we go through here, we can have the screen brightness. This is nice too if we want it brighter or dimmer. Auto dim after so many minutes, from 30 seconds all the way up and through to 20 minutes. Tap flash. Now what this is going to mean is when we are in tap mode, and if I just press this button here, you'll see that this is going to act like tap or flux, and we'll talk about that in just a couple minutes. But for now, we're using this as a tap tempo, and you can see we can have the tap flash on or off if we so desire. I like to have that on. If I long press this, we're going to go back into flux mode, which is one of the coolest features on HX1. As I keep going through my settings here, I have preset select. I can choose either instant or load. Now the instant mode is going to load the preset instantaneously, or we can have it so that it only loads when we exit preset mode. Let's go with instantaneous on this right now. We can also limit the number of presets that Tonex pedal will recognize, and this is going to help us to be able to maybe just flip through a lower number of presets for easier access. So that's another great feature. We have the ability to use external pedals and expression pedals. So we can use a dual foot switch for foot switch 3, 4 to control different functions. As we see here, we can have it control tap, flux, or previous next as far as presets go, or we could have one foot switch and an expression pedal, or just an expression pedal, and so on and so forth. So we basically do have a lot of functionality here. If we find that our expression pedal is working in reverse, we can invert the polarity or keep it normal. Now the pedal position we talked about before, whether we want it pre or post, can actually be set to be a global setting. And then it doesn't matter what preset we're on, it's always going to be in the same place. Or we can decide to save it per preset, which is my preferred use, because if we're using, let's say, MIDI to control HX1, then we can actually save that per preset and have some effects before our amp, some effects after, or in the loop. It's going to be a very nice feature. So I'm going to leave that set to preset for now. Authentic tempo pitch versus transparent tempo pitch. These are all things anybody who's used the Line 6 Helix is familiar with, but this is going to basically determine how a sync delay is going to react, whether all the crazy pitch artifacts that delay creates when we're changing, let's say, the delay time, and we'll get these kind of warbly, crazy effects going on. So we can have that authentic or transparent. I'm going to keep it on authentic for now. And then we have the different MIDI selections we have there, MIDI through, on, MIDI program change control, MIDI channel, MIDI clock. If we were going to use MIDI with HX1, then we would make those settings there. We can also have it so that the tempo is global or preset based, and we can change what that tempo is here, as well as with the tap tempo. And we also have a tuner here, which we can change the tuner reference, whether it is going to mute the output, a dry output, or affected output. And we can also have it so that it's either going to show us sharps or flats. So a lot of great stuff in the settings menu here that I wanted to take you through. So now you understand a little bit about how I am set up. We're going to come out of this, and we're going to come back and take a look at what we can do with this. Now, if we take a look at our effect knob here, if I press and turn this, you'll see that I can select different types of effect groups. So if I want delays, I can just press and turn this, go to delay, and then release and just turn my effects knob to be able to get to whatever delay type I want. So let's start off by messing with the transistor tape. And we'll come in here, take a look at the time. You'll notice it's in milliseconds right now. So what I'm going to do is press that, and you'll notice that I can change this to note values. So I'm going to change that to a quarter note. I'll bring my feedback down in and around 25%. I'm going to scroll over. I'm going to take my mix down in and around 26%. And we'll leave it at that for now. We'll take a listen to what this is like. And I'm going to just engage and disengage the effect with this switch. So let's listen to what this sounds like disengaged to get the bass tone from my Tonex Sir Ombre Ultimate Collection tone. So here's what that sounds like. So when I engage HX1, and here we have that incredible transistor tape algorithm, one of my favorites on the Helix. I want more feedback, I can bump that up. If I want it to work off of eighth notes, excuse my hand. Now, you might find that that's a little limiting, and you say, well, I would love to have the ability to control more tones, more sounds within this, and this is where this incredible feature called FLUX comes into play. We can think of FLUX as kind of a more elaborate snapshot system like we have on the Helix and HX Stomp. So if I come in here and press and hold one of the parameters for 1 second, you'll notice, and I don't know if it's going to show up on screen, but there's little arrows that show up there that will move along with this. Now, when I'm in flux mode here, watch what happens when I press flux. It's now going to scroll between those two parameters. When I'm at this parameter, I can adjust that down. So let's say I wanted my delay to be able to switch between a quarter note and an eighth note on the time. And let's say that also the mix, and I'll press and hold that for 1 second as well. I want the mix to go from, let's say, 37 and 25. Now, when I press flux, you will notice that these parameters that I have set like this are gradually moving between those two. Now, here's the thing. If I come over here and keep scrolling, it will give me the on curve, on time, off time, and off curve. So if I wanted this to be instantaneous, I would come to the on time, simply turn that down to 0. I could come to the off time, which is set here by default on this particular preset at 1 second. Now that I have those both at 0 and we come back to our parameters, you'll notice now when I hit the flux button that it's just an instantaneous switch. So if I was to play, but I could also have those ramp in and out. So let's say the on time, I wanted it to take a whole second for it to ramp up. We get all those tape artifacts because I kept it set to authentic. But the downwards motion is going to be instantaneous. We can do this with any parameter on any of the algorithms that we have within HX1. So you can see how powerful this can be. Let's use a different example. Let's come back in here and I'm going to go to our pitch section and I'm actually going to choose, let's say we wanted to use HX1 as a poly capo for basically using it as we would a drop pedal. So I'm going to take the interval. I'm going to say I want it to be half step down. I'm going to use the tracking as fast, We'll leave the other settings alone, mix up all the way. So basically, here's my guitar tuned normally. When I engage polycapo, I get half-step down tuning. Now, one thing we want to make sure of, we want to go back into our settings and check to see where this is inserted. So we want this. We would want the amp after this effect. So this is going to sound much better, as you can notice now that I've put the amp post HX1. So really, really great stuff there. Now let's come back out to our home and let's set this now using Flux. And we are going to press and hold, and we're going to take this down a full step now on this setting. We'll press our Flux button. We'll bring this all the way to -1. Then we'll come over and we will make these on times. We'll make this just instant. We don't want this to ramp up or down. Excuse my hand again. Now what we can do here is we can have basically 3 tunings. Standard tuning, half step down, and a whole step down. So it works absolutely beautifully. So we could save this by pressing and holding our hold button here. And I can use my effects button here to change the name and scroll through, and then ultimately just save this as a preset in my list. Now you might say, how do we access presets? Well, if we simply come and press both our on and our tap Flux button, basically what's going to happen now is we come to our presets, and we can use these to scroll up and down. So now you can see why you might want to limit the number of presets. If you're only going to use 3 presets, we could limit this to basically, 000 to 002 and be able to scroll quickly without ever leaving this page if we had these always on. Now, if I press both buttons again, I come back out and I can go on and off and utilize my Flux feature. Now, if I hold the Flux button, as I showed you before, I go back into tap tempo mode, right? Which can be a very useful feature. If I hold that again, I go back into Flux mode. We also have the ability to control all of this via MIDI, which is going to be an absolutely incredible thing and open up a lot of possibilities. So as you can see, we have a ton of effects in here, everything from distortion, so many of the effects that we get with our Helix and HX Stomp. We can go into the dynamics mode. We get all the great compressors. Sorry, this is slipping around on me here a bit. We have all the EQ modules, delays, reverbs, pitch section, wah, and looper. So lots of great stuff in here that we can utilize with any amplifier, any other modeler. Like I said, it pairs up beautifully with Tonex and Tonex One. And I think Line 6 did an absolutely spectacular job with this. This is something I wasn't too excited about in the beginning, but now that I see how they've implemented things, I am quite impressed, and I think this is a fabulous product. All right, so there you have it. I am blown away by it. I was wrong. I love this thing. I wasn't excited in the beginning, but I think it is an absolutely spectacular little addition for anybody who needs to add a single algorithm effects processor that's capable of just about anything you can imagine. You want it to be a good drop pedal? It does that. You need a great delay? It's got endless possibilities. Wonderful reverbs, wonderful modulation effects, Go out and get yourself an HX1. Absolutely amazing. I do want to let everybody know that I haven't been paid to do this video, but the folks at Line 6 were kind enough to send over a complimentary HX1 for me to try out. I really thank them for that. And I got to say, I'm very, very impressed with it. I think it's an absolutely wonderful addition to anybody's pedal board. So thank you guys so much for tuning in and sharing your time with me. I'm going to leave you with the demo video for one of my newest presets that I've released recently on the Line 6 Marketplace, which is the Line 6 Helix Brit J45 Bright Ultimate preset. I hope you enjoy the music on the way out. The link is below to the tones that you heard in this video and to the presets you're about to hear on the way out. Thanks again so much for sharing your time with me. Ciao for now.